I never expected to fall in love at summer camp. I mean, I was 22 years old, way too old for the whole camp counselor thing. But I needed the money, and honestly, I needed to get away from the city for a while. My stutter had gotten worse over the past year, probably stress from college and job hunting, and I thought maybe a summer in the mountains would help me reset. What I didn't expect was meeting someone who would make me forget to be afraid of my own voice. The first day at Camp Riverside was chaos. Kids everywhere, parents crying, counselors running around trying to organize cabin assignments. I was assigned to the arts and crafts station, which was perfect because I could mostly demonstrate things without having to talk too much. I'd gotten really good at finding ways around my stutter, at making myself smaller and quieter so people wouldn't notice when I got stuck on words. I first saw him during the counselor orientation meeting. His name was Luca, and he was impossible to miss. Not because he was loud or showy, but because he had this presence that just drew your attention. He was tall, with dark hair that fell into his eyes, and he had this easy smile that made everyone around him relax. He was leading the outdoor activities program, and when he introduced himself, his voice was warm and confident. Everything I wasn't. I didn't think much about him that first day. We were in different program areas, and I figured our paths wouldn't cross much. I was wrong. It was the third day of camp when it happened. I was at the dining hall, trying to order lunch from the kitchen window. The cook asked me what I wanted, and I opened my mouth to say, grilled cheese, but the words got stuck. My mouth formed the shape, the G sound building up in my throat, but nothing came out. I tried again. G gras. The cook waited, looking impatient, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. There were other counselors behind me in line, and I could sense their impatience even though no one said anything. Finally, the words came out in a rush. Grilled cheese. The cook nodded and moved on, and I grabbed my plate with shaking hands. I hated this. Hated how something as simple as ordering food could make me feel like I was failing at being human. I found a seat at the far end of one of the long tables, hoping to eat quickly and get back to my cabin. But then I heard the laughter. It was coming from a table near the kitchen where some of the male counselors were sitting. One of them was a guy named Derek, who ran the sports program. He was massive, probably 6'4", all muscles and swagger. He was doing an imitation of someone stuttering, and his friends were laughing. I knew he was imitating me, the way he exaggerated the G sound, the way he made his face contort. My stomach dropped, and I stared down at my plate, willing myself to become invisible. This wasn't new. I'd dealt with bullies before. The best strategy was always to ignore them, to not give them the satisfaction of a reaction. But then I heard a chair scrape back, and when I looked up, I saw Luca standing. He'd been sitting at a different table, but now he was walking toward Derek's table, and there was something in his posture that made the whole dining hall seem to quiet down. "What's so funny?" Luca said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Derek looked up, still grinning. "Just joking around, man." "Lighten up." Luca stepped closer. He was tall, but Derek had at least 3 inches and probably 50 pounds on him. "Seemed like you were making fun of someone's stutter." "That doesn't sound like a joke to me. That sounds like you being an asshole." The dining hall had gone completely silent now. Even the younger campers had stopped chattering to watch what was happening. Derek stood up, and suddenly the size difference was even more obvious. Luca didn't back down. "You got a problem," he said to Derek, his voice steady and calm. "Because if you want to make fun of how someone talks, you can start with me. I'm right here." I couldn't breathe. This stranger was standing up for me, was literally putting himself between me and someone who could easily hurt him. and I didn't understand why. Derek looked around, suddenly aware that everyone was watching. He tried to laugh it off. "Dude, it's not that serious." "It is that serious," Lucas said. "And if I ever hear you mocking someone again, for any reason, we're going to have a real problem. You understand?" For a long moment, Derek just stared at him. Then he sat back down, muttering something under his breath. Luca held his gaze for another few seconds before turning and walking out of the dining hall. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to go after him, to thank him, but I was terrified I'd stutter through the whole thing and make it worse. So I finished my lunch as quickly as I could and went back to my station. That night I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. I lay in my bunk in the counselor's cabin, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The way Luca had stood up without hesitation. The way he'd faced down someone twice his size. The way he'd said it, "Is that serious?" Like my dignity actually mattered. The next morning I found him at the lake, preparing kayaks for a group activity. I'd been working up the courage all through breakfast, and I knew if I didn't do it now, I never would. "Hey," I said as I approached. My voice came out okay. No stutter, and I felt a small surge of relief. He looked up and smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "Hey, you're the arts and crafts guy, right?" I nodded, and he wiped his hands on his shorts before extending one. "I'm Luca." "I know," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm. "I'm Adrian. I wanted to thank you for yesterday." His expression softened. "You don't need to thank me. That guy was being a dick." "Still," I said, "not everyone would have done that, especially not for someone they don't even know." Luca shrugged, but I could see something shift in his eyes. "I know what it's like to be different," he said quietly. "To have people make fun of you for something you can't control. Nobody should have to deal with that alone." There was something in the way he said it that made me think he wasn't just talking about me. But before I could ask, a group of campers came running up, ready for their kayaking lesson, and the moment passed. Over the next few days, I found myself looking for Luca. Not in an obvious way, just noticing where he was during meals, watching him lead groups of kids down to the lake, seeing him at the evening campfires. He had this way, with the campers, patient and encouraging, never talking down to them. He made everyone feel seen. And I started to notice other things too, the way his shirt clung to his shoulders when it was wet from lake water, the way he laughed, throwing his head back unself-consciously, the way his hands moved when he was explaining something, graceful and sure. I tried to tell myself it was just admiration, gratitude for what he'd done. But late at night, alone in my bunk, I couldn't lie to myself. I'd had crushes on guys before, though I'd never acted on them. Growing up in a small town, being gay wasn't something you advertised, and by the time I got to college, I was so used to hiding that part of myself that it felt safer to just keep doing it. But something about Luca made me want to be braver. We started talking more. Little conversations at first, passing each other between activities, then longer ones during our break periods. I learned that he was a year older than me, that he'd just graduated from college with a degree in environmental science. He wanted to be a park ranger, he told me one afternoon as we sat on the dock watching the sunset. He loved being outdoors, loved teaching kids to respect nature. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you want to do after camp?" I hesitated. I'd been studying graphic design, but lately I'd been doubting everything. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I had it all figured out, but now I'm not sure." I paused, then added quietly, Sometimes I think my stutter holds me back from what I really want. What do you really want? Luca asked, and there was no pity in his voice, just genuine curiosity. I want to teach, I said. The words came out smoothly, and I felt a rush of relief. I love working with kids, watching them learn, but I'm scared that no one will take me seriously if I can't even get through a sentence sometimes. Luca was quiet for a moment, and I worried I'd said too much. But then he turned to look at me, his dark eyes serious. You know what I see when I watch you with the kids, he said. I see someone patient and creative, someone who listens, someone who makes every kid feel like their project is the most important thing in the world. That's what makes a good teacher, Adrian, not whether you stutter or not. My throat felt tight. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. Besides, Luca continued, his voice softer now, some of the best people I know have things that make them different. That's not weakness. That's just being human. We sat there as the sun dipped below the trees, and I felt something shift inside me. Not just gratitude anymore, but something deeper. Something that scared me and thrilled me at the same time. The summer started to take on a different quality after that. Luca and I fell into an easy rhythm. We'd find each other during free periods, take walks along the trails, sit together at campfires. The other counselors started teasing us about being attached at the hip, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt like I could be myself around someone. One night, about halfway through the summer, we were sitting on the dock after all the campers had gone to bed. The stars were incredible, scattered across the sky, like someone had thrown diamonds onto black velvet. Luca was lying on his back, hands behind his head, and I was sitting with my knees drawn up, watching the water. Can I ask you something? I said. The words came out easily in the darkness, like the night made me braver. Sure, Luca said. What did you mean that day at the lake, when you said you know what it's like to be different? He was quiet for so long I thought maybe he wasn't going to answer. Then he sat up, and even in the darkness I could see the tension in his shoulders. I'm gay, he said simply. And growing up in my family, in my town, that was about the worst thing you could be. I spent years hiding, pretending, trying to be what everyone wanted me to be. It almost destroyed me. My heart was hammering in my chest. I didn't trust myself to speak. So when I saw that asshole making fun of you, Luca continued, I saw every bully who ever made me feel like I was wrong for existing, and I just couldn't let it go. He looked at me, and even in the dim light I could see the vulnerability in his face. I'm sorry if that's too much information. I just thought you should know. It's not too much, I said, and my voice only shook a little. Actually, I'm glad you told me. I took a deep breath, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I'm gay too. The words hung in the air between us. I'd never said them out loud before, not to anyone. And now here they were, floating in the darkness like fireflies. Luca's face broke into a smile, and suddenly he was laughing. But it wasn't mean laughter. It was relief and joy, and something else I couldn't quite name. Come here, he said, and before I knew what was happening, he'd pulled me into a hug. I froze for a second, then slowly wrapped my arms around him. He was warm and solid, and he smelled like lake water and pine trees, and I felt something inside me unknot. Thank you for trusting me, he said quietly, his breath warm against my ear. We pulled apart, but we stayed close. And when I looked at his face, I saw something there that made my breath catch. He was looking at me the way I'd been looking at him for weeks now, like I was something precious and unexpected. Adrian, he said, and then he stopped. like he was trying to find the right words. I really like you, like more than just friends. And if I'm completely misreading this situation, please tell me now, before I make a complete fool of myself. You're not misreading it, I said, and the words came out clear and strong. I like you too. So much it scares me. His smile was radiant. Can I kiss you? I nodded, not trusting my voice, and then his hand was on my cheek, and his lips were on mine, and it was gentle and perfect, and everything I'd ever imagined. When we pulled apart, I was shaking, but it was the good kind of shaking, the kind that comes from feeling too much happiness to contain. We stayed on the dock for hours that night, talking and kissing and making plans. Luca told me about his family, about coming out to them during his sophomore year of college, about the rocky years that followed, and the slow rebuilding of trust. I told him about my fear of being myself, about the years of hiding and pretending and trying to make my stutter disappear. You don't have to hide anymore, he said, lacing his fingers through mine. Not with me. Not ever. The rest of the summer was like living in a dream. We were careful around the campers and the other counselors, not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted to keep this thing between us sacred and private. But during our free time, we were inseparable. We'd sneak away to hidden spots in the woods, lie in the grass and talk about everything and nothing, steal kisses behind the equipment shed. Derek kept his distance after that day in the dining hall, and I noticed Luca had developed a reputation among the staff as someone you didn't mess with. But with me, he was nothing but gentle. He never pushed me to talk when I was having a bad stutter day. He'd just sit with me, patient and present, until the words came, or until I found another way to communicate. One afternoon, we were helping set up for the end of summer talent show when I got stuck on a word while talking to one of the other counselors. I could feel the familiar panic rising, but then Luca's hand found mine. Just for a second. A quick squeeze of reassurance. The panic faded, and the words came. Later, when we were alone, I asked him about it. How did you know what I needed? He smiled. I just paid attention. You get this look in your eyes when you're starting to panic, like you're drowning. I wanted you to know you weren't alone. I kissed him then, hard and desperate, trying to pour everything I felt into that kiss. All the gratitude and affection, and the scary, wonderful feeling that was starting to feel a lot like love. The last night of camp came too quickly. The campers had all gone home, and the counselors were having a farewell bonfire. People were exchanging numbers, making promises to stay in touch, reminiscing about the summer. Luca and I sat close together, his arm around my shoulders, and I felt a deep sense of contentment, mixed with the sadness of ending. After the bonfire died down and people started heading to bed, Luca and I walked down to the lake one last time. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water. I don't want this to end, I said quietly. It doesn't have to, Luca said. I mean, the summer is ending, but we don't have to. He turned to face me, taking both my hands in his. I know we live 2 hours apart, and I know long distance is hard. But Adrian, I'm falling in love with you. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. My eyes were stinging with tears. I'm falling in love with you too. And I don't care if it's hard. I want to try. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I felt like everything in my life had been leading to this moment. This person. This feeling of being seen and accepted and cherished exactly as I was. We made plans that night. Luca would come visit me in the city, and I'd go see him at his place. We'd video chat every day. We'd make it work because the alternative, losing each other, was unthinkable. The next morning, as we loaded our cars to leave, Luca pulled me aside one more time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone, the kind you find by the lake. "I found this on our first walk together," he said. "I've been carrying it around all summer. I want you to have it. So you remember that you're stronger than you think, that your voice matters, stutter or not, and that someone thinks you're pretty amazing exactly as you are." I closed my fingers around the stone, feeling its weight in my palm. "Thank you," I managed to say, "for everything, for standing up for me that day, for seeing me." "Always," Luca said, and kissed my forehead. "Now go, before I change my mind and kidnap you." I laughed through my tears and got in my car. As I drove away, I watched him in my rearview mirror, standing there waving, and I felt something settle in my chest. Hope, maybe, or courage, or just the simple knowledge that I wasn't alone anymore. That was 3 months ago. Luca and I are still together, and it hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. Every video call, every weekend visit, every text message. We're planning to move in together after he finishes his park ranger certification. I'm applying to teaching programs, and when I practice my interview responses, Luca sits there listening, never making me feel rushed or inadequate. My stutter hasn't gone away. Some days are better than others, but I'm learning that it doesn't define me. It's just one part of who I am, like having brown eyes or being left-handed. And having someone who loves me exactly as I am makes all the difference. I keep that stone from the lake on my desk, and whenever I'm having a hard day, whenever the words won't come and I feel like giving up, I hold it in my hand and remember. Remember the guy who picked a fight with someone twice his size because he heard someone laughing at my stutter. Remember falling in love by firelight and starlight. Remember learning that being different isn't something to hide. It's just part of being human. And I remember that somewhere 2 hours away, there's someone who thinks I'm worth fighting for. Someone who sees my strength instead of my weakness. Someone who taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to be yourself with another person. That's the thing about love, I guess. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't make the hard things disappear. But it makes you feel less alone in facing them. And sometimes that's everything.